Hello, everyone, worldwide, wherever you are on God's green planet. Here we are. It is amazing to be alive. When I wake up, I'm like, oh Lord, I'm alive. Praise God. So I am so excited. It's great to meet you all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Mandy, for coming today. At this, I would say, a short notice. In less than what 3 weeks, boom, she
Yeah.
was on board. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you. Words cannot express my gratitude to you. So, happy Nurses Week, International Nurses Week. And to add that on, we started a week as International Midwives Day, which was May 5th. And now we are just rolling on. And until the 16th, we have activities every day. So I say, welcome to Nurses in Charge. This is Share Your Nurse Story podcast. We've been running now for almost 3 years. We love it. We share your stories here. And today is an amazing one. This is your lifeline. This is what I call it, your lifeline. Nurses and midwives. We need to know these informations. So today I bring you Mandy Reed from Dinah and human trafficking awareness for healthcare professionals. Wow. So we're protecting nurses and midwives in a global healthcare workplace as
Mm.
part of the International Nurses and Midwives Week as we celebrate 2026 um, uh, awareness and honoring of our professionals. Nurses in Charge is honored to host a powerful and eye-opening conversation focused on one of the most urgent yet under discussed issues
Mm.
affecting healthcare professionals globally: human trafficking and deceptive recruitment practices within the healthcare migration pathway is a real danger. If you've never heard of it, today is your day to open your eyes. So this special episode features Mandy Reed. She is the founder of Dinah Incorporated. Mandy is a passionate, you will get to know that very soon. She is a passionate advocate, educator, and leader who is dedicated to raising awareness about human trafficking and equipping communities like ours today to recognize, prevent, and respond to exploitation. In today's rapidly changing healthcare environment, thousands of nurses and midwives migrate across borders each year in search for a better opportunity, that greener pasture, career growth, and financial stability. Unfortunately, some healthcare professionals become vulnerable to fraudulent job recruitment, contract exploitation, unsafe work environments, immigration manipulation, human trafficking related schemes. During this important conversation, Mandy Reed will help healthcare professionals better understand the warning signs, the red flags, safe practices before accepting assignments aboard, how traffickers target vulnerable professionals, the role of awareness, advocacy, and prevention, protecting nurses and midwives in global healthcare systems. So this discussion will also include a live audience Q&A at the end. So we will be providing nurses and midwives, students, you name it. Even if you are not a healthcare professional, but you know someone who is there, tag them on, share the link, subscribe, because Mandy is not just a visitor. She is here to stay with us. For the longer run, she serves Christ through saving souls. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us give a round of applause to Mandy Reed from Dear Diner.
Wow, thank you. What an introduction. Ah, I am so honored to be here. This is such an important conversation, like you said. And I really believe that we are turning the tide with going from just such a lack of awareness and conversation to people like yourself stepping up and wanting to just shine a light on this dark topic and prepare people. I think it's empowering when we have this conversation and discover that we are not helpless in the fight against human trafficking, but we are all equipped and we are all positioned to fight against it and protect ourselves. So I am so honored to be here and to provide this training for you all. I just want to give you a little bit of an overview, and then I'm going to do a share screen and I'm going to go through this training. But just to give you an idea of what this is going to look like, we're going to start by just really diving into human trafficking. I really believe that we are having the wrong conversation, or we've had the wrong conversation about what it actually is. So we're going to talk about what human trafficking truly is, what it looks like, these, tactics and strategies that traffickers are using to be able to prey on vulnerable souls. We're going to go through all of that because you are all so beautifully positioned to get up close and personal with potential victims of human trafficking. You have a unique opportunity that many of us do not have to be able to touch and look close and ask questions. And so I want to give you tools to be able to, as you are called and you're on the field, just know some of those signs you can be looking out for potential victims right in front of you, and how to protect and how to just draw near and potentially help them out of a horrible situation they may be in. And then I want to give you tools to protect yourselves as well, because like you said, traffickers are certainly using very crafty skills to lure even the smartest, wisest people into their traps. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone listening to this call or anyone in general. We want to protect our brothers and sisters. So we're going to talk about that towards the end of the training. And then, like you said, we'll have a time for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Take it.
All right, let's see if I can do this right. I'm still getting used to how this goes. Okay, if I need you to let me know if you can see this. Can you see this?
Not hold on. Let me project that.
Okay.
Perfect. Here we go. Awesome.
You got it?
Yes, we did.
All right. Well, let's roll into this. So, first of all, I just want to start from the very beginning and make it so abundantly clear. Every trafficking statistic that we talk about, we're going to throw some numbers and statistics out there, but we have to remember that behind every statistic and every number is a soul, a precious soul that has a name and a story and worth, a soul that was created with a purpose and a plan over their life. So, as we get into just the information, let's not forget that we are talking about real people with real stories. And I always start here because human trafficking by nature is trying to rob people of their humanity, and we want to give that back to them. So without further ado, I'm going to skip this agenda. We're going to jump right into what is human trafficking. So human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, or organ trafficking, or the commercial sexual exploitation of a minor by any means. And then again, the way that we really break this down is simply saying human trafficking is the sale of souls. This is people selling people, human beings selling human beings. And really, there's about 3 layers to human trafficking to really understand that. So you have the action, the means, and the purpose. So what is the action, which is the recruiting, transferring, harboring, or obtaining of a person? That is what it is. Now, there is a common myth and misconception that human trafficking requires movement. And that is actually not always the case. There are certainly souls that are being trafficked or have been trafficked and have never left their home or community. With Dear Dinah, we have a home here in Dayton, Ohio called the Victory House, where women in our city who are homeless and living in exploitation and trafficking can come in on any given day, and they can just receive resources and support. We have women coming in who have been trafficked for over 20 years and never left our city. So it's important to know that just because someone has been in the same place, maybe even their whole life, does not mean they are not potentially a trafficking victim. But there is an action to trafficking. So sometimes it is transporting and movement, and sometimes it's just the obtaining of a person. And then we have the means. So the means is how this is happening, and this is really important. So in order to be considered human trafficking, there has to be the proof of force, fraud, or coercion. And this is actually what separates and differentiates a trafficking victim from a prostitute. Now, a prostitute is someone who is actually willingly selling themselves. And let's say they are selling themselves for sex and they receive money, they keep that money. A trafficking victim is being sold for sex, and the money goes right to their trafficker. So a lot of times those two are confused, a prostitute, a trafficking victim. Now listen, we know just from the many women we've met who have been in prostitution that there was a point of disruption, there was a point of abuse and maybe even trafficking, but still they are choosing that life, whereas a trafficking victim has not chosen that. There at some point was a point of force, fraud, or coercion. Now, the only exception to this is when it comes to a minor. So if it's a minor, there does not have to be proof of force, fraud, or coercion. And then there's the purpose. So we have action, means, and purpose. The purpose is why. And again, we're talking about commercial sex, labor, trafficking, involuntary servitude, debt bondage, slavery. The goal of a trafficker is always exploitation for profit or benefit. This is a business for them. This is about money. It is very evil. It is very demonic. It is hard to make sense of something that is evil. But this is what we're working with when we look at human trafficking, or these three layers. Now, I really want to quickly just say, oftentimes when I do these trainings, I will lean heavy on saying women and girls. And so let me just say really quickly, that does not mean that men and boys are not also trafficked. Because Dear Dinah primarily works with women, it is by nature that I say women, but I do want to make sure that I make it clear that it is not just women being trafficked. It is men and it is boys as well. Now let's look at the three different types of human trafficking. There's sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and domestic servitude. A lot of this training prior to when we really jump into the protection of, you nurses as you are looking for work around the country, this training is going to be focused heavily on sex trafficking. However, we'll dive into labor trafficking a little towards the end. But sex trafficking, this occurs when a person is forced or manipulated, coerced, or deceived into commercial sexual activity. Another very common misconception is that trafficking victims are often kidnapped, or they go missing and somebody takes them and then you never see them again. Whereas actually what happens more commonly is that a victim has known their trafficker. There was a relationship already formed ahead of time before exploitation ever began. So when we talk about sex trafficking, there's often a bond that a victim has with their trafficker because there was a grooming process that took place before exploitation happened. Now, labor trafficking involves forcing or coercing someone to work through threats, violence, debt manipulation, fraud, or abuse of power. And this can look different. Victims may be found in agriculture settings and construction, restaurants, factories, domestic work, hospitals, traveling sales crew. Freedom is often restricted and they may be underpaid or unpaid at all. And the hard thing about labor trafficking is that many times victims of labor trafficking are working legal careers. And so the red flags may be difficult because they may be in a restaurant, or they may be in, a nail salon, or they be doing sales positions that look from the outside as if everything is legal and everything is done, right. Whereas you have no idea that on the other side, this person is actually being forced. They're in debt bondage. They're living in horrible conditions and they don't know how to get out. So it's important to understand that labor trafficking and sex trafficking right in front of our eyes. And unless we know the signs and we understand how this works, it can be very hard to identify it and see that it's happening again right in front of us. And then there's domestic servitude, which is a specific form of labor trafficking, and it happens in private homes. So this can look like nannies, housekeepers, or caregivers. And a lot of times these victims are kept and left under closed doors and are very hard to identify because they're often not let out of the house. Now, there is another form of trafficking, which is organ trafficking. And I don't have a lot of the information to dive into in this training specifically, but I can say that it is more prevalent than a lot of people know. Organ trafficking actually accounts to about 10% of organ transplants. So to put that into perspective, about 1 out of every 10 organ transplants is a trafficked organ. So when you think of it that way, it really does show that it is prevalent. But again, this training is not really going to dive into organ trafficking. So we're going to keep the focus mainly on the sex trafficking. And then, like I said, we'll get into labor trafficking towards the end. Now let's talk about those numbers. And again, I just want to point out that these numbers, first of all, are not fully accurate. The reason is because human trafficking lurks in the darkness and is hard to identify. And so these numbers are really coming from what has been reported and victims who have self-identified. So when we say that about 50 million souls are being trafficked today, but understanding that is probably a gross underestimate, this is far too high. And if you ask me if it was one soul being trafficked, it would be one too many, and it would be worth everything that we are doing to fight against this. But statistically, it looks like at this time there's about 50 million souls. Now, we in the US have just, I believe last year, the reports just reached over 1 million in the US of trafficked souls. Now, of the 50 million, about 12 million of those are children. 54% are women and girls. And in 2022, so this is outdated, unfortunately, but in 2022, there were 88 million CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material, files reported to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, tip line. That was in 2022, 88 million child CSAM files were reported. 4 years later, I cannot even imagine what that number looks like, as it only continues to increase the amount of children that are being sexually exploited. Child sex trafficking has been reported in all 50 US states, and human trafficking is currently the second most profitable illegal industry in the US. Now, when we talk about where is this happening, unfortunately, the answer is everywhere at this point. As I said in my last slide, child trafficking has been reported in all 50 states, and so has adult trafficking. This is a heat map, and this is actually, again, unfortunately outdated. We don't have much information that is current, sadly, but this is a heat map that Polaris put out, and this just shows some of the high call volumes across the US. So you can see some of the areas where you don't see any of the color. It doesn't mean that there isn't human trafficking. It just means that potentially there weren't a high number of reports in that area. But you can see some of the more congested areas. You can see Florida all the way up to New York and Maine, that's a heavy area there. And that is actually a known track. So a track is an area where victims are known to be trafficked along. Like I said, it doesn't require movement, but this is a known track where traffickers will at times take their victims down to Florida and they will move them up and down that coastline, hitting some of those larger cities, tourist areas, and really flying under the area. So they may go up and down the coastline to stay hidden and to hit some of those areas where they're going to have more people ready to, unfortunately, party and purchase human beings. And that's just the sad reality of what this is. It follows the money. And so that is a known track. But you can see I'm located in Ohio, and Ohio is actually ranked 5th right now in the US for trafficking reports. It has been reported in large states, and it has been reported, large cities and small towns as well. And really what you're looking for is vulnerabilities. And we'll talk about this in a moment here. But really, trafficking, if there are vulnerabilities, there is more than likely going to be trafficking as well. We'll talk about what that looks like. But before that, real quick, I just want to put some things into perspective. When you talk about a trafficking survivor, less than 1% of trafficking victims will be identified. They will either go unidentified or they will die in the life. And it's said that this level of trauma, statistically, a soul can only take about 7 years in a trafficking situation with this level of abuse, with this level of manipulation, with this level of exploitation. This is a horrific, horrific crime and abuse that souls are having to face. And again, because we are not having the right conversation so often, they are right in front of us going unseen, which is why I'm so, again, excited about this conversation, because each of you listening, I cannot reiterate, you have such an opportunity to look face to face with somebody who others may completely go, unnoticed, not even see them right in front of them. You have an opportunity to see them, to ask them questions, to draw near, to have proximity, to step into their world and potentially offer them hope and a way out of their situation. The demand, and this is a sad reality as well, but this is a situation of supply and demand. This is human beings demanding human beings. And as long as people are willing to buy sex, exploit labor, and profit from vulnerability, traffickers will continue to exploit human beings for financial gain. And what that financial gain looks like right now is about a $236 billion industry. And I mentioned this earlier, it's the second fastest growing crime in the US. Drug trafficking is number one. But what we're seeing is that traffickers have figured out you can sell a drug one time, but a victim can be exploited and sold over and over and over for profit. Human beings are treated as renewable commodities. And trafficking is driven by economics. So exploitation produces enormous financial gain with comparatively low risk for traffickers. And to put this number into perspective, human trafficking generates more annual profit than the combined revenues of the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL combined several times over. This is too much. This is too evil. This absolutely has to be stopped. And I absolutely believe that we can stop this, at least for one soul, which is worth it. Now, I still talk about COVID and the effects that it had on human trafficking, because I think it's important to understand this and to understand what trafficking looks like as a result of COVID. So since COVID hit in 2020, the reports of child sexual abuse material have increased 400%. And the reason that this happened is because when COVID hit and the world shut down, all of the vulnerabilities skyrocketed. There was isolation, poverty, lack of accountability. Our children were sent home from schools, which for many of them was the only safe place that they had. They were sent home. They were sent home with screens, and traffickers actually reported that time as being feeding time because they recognized how easy it was to get to these vulnerable children. Children were at home. They had complete access to them through online chats and messenger capabilities, through social media. And so traffickers realized that instead of having to go and physically position themselves, which they will do, but they realize they can go online, they can go unseen, fly under the radar, build relationships with children, and to be able to exploit and groom them online without anybody even knowing. And that has not stopped since then, which is why we've seen the 400% increase. Now, in addition to this, what we also saw, because when the pandemic hit and people were no longer going outside as much and driving around as much, they realized putting their victims on the street and having them sell themselves on the street was not as beneficial as posting them online. And so now many victims of human trafficking are sold online. They're sold on websites that anyone can access at any time. It is easy and it is completely hidden. And what it looks like is that a trafficking victim, they have an ad online with pictures and descriptions, and it makes it look as if they are willing participants. And so for a buyer of sex who goes online to purchase a soul, they have no idea or care whether or not this person is a willing participant or a victim. There is no way to tell. And so that also has not changed since COVID. So when we do undercover sting operations, our team is going online to find and try and pull in these ads, these souls that are being posted, to have a moment of intersection and just meet them face to face and offer them a way out. Again, whether they are a trafficking victim or not, they all deserve dignity. They were all made with value and worth, and we want to provide an opportunity to show them they do not have to continue the path that they are on and the life that they are living. Now, some terminology real quick, just to run through this, because again, I think it's important to understand what this looks like. Traffickers and pimps, that can be anyone. And a trafficker, like I said earlier, is almost always known by their victim prior to exploitation. A trafficker can be a family member, a significant other, community member. They're they're often known and are very well liked by strangers. They are narcissists. And if you understand narcissism, oftentimes a narcissist is well liked by people who don't know who they truly are behind closed doors. Traffickers are very good with words. They can seem as if they are heroes and rescuers and saviors. And so oftentimes when they're preying on vulnerable souls, they present themselves as the solution to their problem. And they draw close and they take their time building that relationship. It's hard to identify because, like this says, it can be anyone. Now, the same goes for a buyer or a John. So the Johns are those who are driving the demand for human trafficking by purchasing human beings. And these can be anyone as well. It can be a man or a woman, a doctor, a lawyer, a family man, a teacher, a coach, a Christian, godly man, quote unquote. A John can be hidden behind any of those terms. And the hard thing about this is that because a John can be anyone, it is very hard for victims to trust men. Because while there are women buyers, it is almost primarily men. And it's very, very difficult for victims to come out of this knowing who they can trust because they've seen it all. Now, this is also why we believe very strongly that men play one of the most important roles in fighting against human trafficking, because this has to be redeemed. We believe that victims of human trafficking who believe that there is no such thing as a good man needs to have the opportunity to see that that is a lie from the enemy, that there are good, godly men, and that there are good, safe men as well. So this is something that Dear Dinah has provided opportunities for men to get involved through Dinah's Brothers, and we are happy to talk to anybody who wants to unpack this at another time. Then we have the recruiters, or the bottoms is another term. And they're the ones from their stable who often will look for new victims and groom the victims. They bring them into the game of trafficking. They will help train them. They will potentially help post their ads online. They will oftentimes present themselves as a mother figure, as a friend, to be able to build trust and bring them into the life of human trafficking and introduce them to the trafficker. So oftentimes a bottom is is a victim that was trafficked and has earned their way up in trust and rank with their trafficker. And then they go from being trafficked to still being trafficked, but having more responsibilities and helping with the recruitment side of human trafficking. So these are just some helpful terms to understand when talking about the game, which is another phrase for just the life of somebody in trafficking. Now, vulnerabilities, and as I said, this is such an important aspect to understand, because without this, there would be no human trafficking. This right here is how this works. Traffickers are preying on vulnerabilities. They are actively looking for vulnerable souls, and then they will gain trust by grooming those souls. And so let's unpack vulnerabilities for a moment. A vulnerability can truly be anything. This is that deep need, that brokenness, that desire that a soul has. For some, that may be a very obvious, visible vulnerability. For others, it is quiet and it is not as easily seen. When we do trainings with children, I will ask the children in the room, who thinks that loneliness may be a vulnerability? And every time I ask that question, all of those hands go in the air. Because for so many right now in our culture, a culture that is easily distracted and consumed with a screen in front of their faces, so many people are feeling lonely and isolated. And that is a huge vulnerability that traffickers can prey on. But these are some other vulnerabilities. I'm going to read through this list: an unstable living condition or homelessness, a history of abuse, whether that's domestic or sexual, disabilities, unstable working conditions or unemployment, alcohol or drug addiction, undocumented immigrants or runaway youth, a family member who's incarcerated, a family member with a substance abuse, a child, anyone facing poverty or economic need, or a child involved in the welfare system, and social marginalization. So maybe even if you think about where you are currently positioned and who you are seeing day to day, what are some of the vulnerabilities that you are seeing? It's important to ask this question, because this is where I believe that we can truly end and stop human trafficking. If traffickers are preying on vulnerabilities, if they are looking for vulnerable souls to prey on for the purpose of exploitation, if those of us who are good and healthy and lovely can also see the vulnerabilities around us, if we can also see the needs around us, and if we can step in to help and to meet those needs and to offer support and to come alongside these broken, vulnerable souls, then we just stopped a trafficker in their tracks. We just made it to where a trafficker is not going to be able to groom that soul, because that soul is now being cared for by what is real and what is righteous. So this is something that I believe so strongly in. And this is where I believe everyone has a role in fighting against human trafficking, because everyone can stop and look at in front of them to see the needs around them and to help the people around them. We can all do that for each other. And this is how we fight against human trafficking. So where you are positioned, where you are meeting souls that have so many different needs, physical needs, mental needs, emotional needs, spiritual needs, you are positioned to be the person that they go to for help. And this is such an opportunity to be able to fight human trafficking simply by doing exactly what you feel called to do and care for those people. Now, the grooming process is something that is very important to understand, because this is almost textbook. When a trafficker finds a vulnerable soul, the next step is the grooming process. And so I want to run through this, because I believe that once we understand their tactics and their strategy, we can begin to break that down. We can begin to recognize people who may be in the process of being groomed and potentially have an opportunity to step in and to help them and to help them see that maybe they're in a situation that is not healthy and is dangerous for them. I did a training yesterday in Tennessee, and as I went through this process, there was a woman in the room who raised her hand and she unpacked the fact that she realized that she was in this relationship. And to watch her come to the reality that she was actually being groomed by someone, again, just showed the power of knowledge and the power of understanding that if we can see how they are working and what they are doing, we can protect against it. So I want to go through this to understand again that as you're talking to somebody, you may see them at a different point of this wheel. So it begins with the target, and this is when a trafficker is looking for someone who is vulnerable. We just went through some examples of vulnerabilities, but this person at the end of the day is looking for love, belonging, and acceptance. When the trafficker finds that vulnerable soul, they're going to begin to build a relationship and earn the person's trust. They're going to do this by showing attention, giving compliments, listening, showing understanding, pretending to care. And again, when this is a vulnerable soul who feels as if no one sees them, no one cares about them, no one is looking out for them, just to have someone look them in the eyes and be engaging and want to ask questions, that can be like a dry sponge for the first time, feeling as if they are not alone. As they're gaining trust, the trafficker is going to begin to meet needs. And by meeting their needs, what they're doing is they're creating dependency. They're providing gifts, money, or attention, offering affection. They're going to help solve problems and become the hero or the savior of the day. So they may even begin to say things like, nobody cares about you like I do. Who else is taking care of you? Who else is looking out for you? It's starting to really solidify the fact that I am the one who can meet your needs. I am the one that you can trust. I am the one, you don't need anybody else. I am the one. And as they are building this level of intense relationship, they're going to begin to separate that victim from any supportive systems they may have had, if they had any. So they'll create distance from their family and friends. They'll discourage any kind of outside relationship. They may monitor their communication and create secrecy so that person feels as if they are alone. And a lot of times at this point, they may not care because they may believe, I don't need anybody else but this person who actually loves me. Now, once isolation has taken place, the trafficker will then introduce exploitation and will normalize it over time as well. So they'll do this by testing boundaries, desensitizing the victim. They may use manipulation and introduce commercial sex or forced labor. A lot of times they will do this using pornography. They will do this by little, asking them to do things that they may be uncomfortable with, but to begin to break that down so that at the point of control, this person now feels as if I can't go back. I've done things, I've seen things, I've been a part of things I never thought I would. Nobody would understand. There is guilt, there is shame. There's also threats from the trafficker. If they were to leave, there's violence, there's financial control, ongoing manipulation, and they truly make that person believe that they have no other choice but to stay. So it's very important to understand what this looks like, because so often I will hear people ask the question of, why won't someone just leave? Why won't they get out? And to understand that this was a process, not an overnight situation, but a process that has led them to this point, can offer a space for compassion to recognize that maybe today they are being controlled and there's violence and abuse, but at one point that was a very broken, vulnerable soul who just wanted to be loved. And sadly, the wrong person stepped in to offer a false love, which again is why we have to be willing to see the people around us and to step in close for those who are hurting and to offer care and support and love. So why do victims stay? A number of reasons: fear, threats, shame, isolation. They may hope for change. There may be addiction. Oftentimes, drug addiction and substance abuse and trafficking go hand in hand. If there wasn't already addiction, traffickers may introduce substances to form another bond and addiction that will keep them from leaving. There may be loyalty and attachment, safety risks, a lack of resources and support, and they may have inquired criminal charges during their exploitation. Oftentimes, we have victims that will take charges for their trafficker to protect their trafficker. So there's many reasons why they stay and don't get help, and a lot of that starts with the very first thing, which is fear. So being a safe place and giving an opportunity for them to disclose in a safe manner and truly believe that this person in front of them will believe them can be the difference of life and death for some of these victims. Now, in a healthcare setting, there's different red flags that you can be looking for. Now, I often tell people that you may see some of these red flags and it's not human trafficking. You may see none of them and it is human trafficking. So this can be difficult at times, but it's still helpful to understand that there certainly are signs for a trafficking victim. And so a lot of these are focused on pregnant women and in a pregnancy setting. However, there are certainly signs that we can unpack, and especially during our time of questions, we can go through this as well. But I want to go through these because oftentimes these victims are going to be seen most commonly for either physical injuries that are endured from their abuse. They may have strangulation, burn marks. They may have malnutrition. They may be there for overdose as well. So there may be physical reasons for coming in. Often they may be coming in to seek help because of an STD or pregnancy. And so there's just understanding that oftentimes they're not allowed to receive health care, proper health care and support. But when they do, there are certainly signs that you can be looking out for. So, and again, I apologize, many of these are focused on pregnancy, but we can unpack this. So a client who has multiple pregnancies, miscarriages, or terminations in a short span of time. A woman who appears reluctant or unable to speak for herself about her living situation. They may, and this can go, especially for labor trafficking as well. This can be a man or a woman, and this can be, not just pregnancy, but if they are unable to speak for themselves, if they keep their answers short or they seem rehearsed with their answers or fearful, that can be a red flag, as well as if there is somebody who is with them who won't let them be alone, who won't let them answer their questions, who often speaks on their behalf, that is a red flag. If they are there for a pregnancy test or an ultrasound and they do not have any primary decision making, so again, somebody else is there to make decisions for them. They may have inconsistent or vague history of their living arrangements, their supports, poor or unstable housing, frequent moves, or a combination of addiction, homelessness, sexual exploitation signs. A pregnant woman who has little or no prenatal care and has repeated terminations and miscarriages. I believe the last statistic I saw was that on average, a trafficking victim will have around 7 forced abortions during their exploitation. And so being seen for pregnancy and abortion is very common for a trafficking victim. There may be signs of physical trauma. So like I mentioned, they may have bruises, burns, poor hygiene, undernutrition, or unexplained infections and STIs. The partner with them, again, may insist on being present, controlling their contact information or their phone, may answer for them, and may seem more invested in the business side of their health. So when are they going to be better? When are they going to be able to work again? When will they be able to, it's going to be more focused on business than their physical and emotional and mental health. And then if it is a victim who is appears fearful or anxious about law enforcement, medical providers, or discussing their situation in detail, these are all red flags that you may see in a healthcare setting. So, what can you do if you are positioned in that setting to be face to face and up close and personal? So here's what I want to just really reiterate is that you may not be the one who they disclose to and who you even are able to help rescue them from their situation, but you may be the person who plants the seed for them. And never underestimate even one interaction where you let them know that you see them, that you hear them, and that you believe them. I have had women that I have met one time, and years later they have reached out for help because they believed in that short and brief interaction that I was somebody that they could trust. And so when they were ready, I was the person they reached out to. So don't underestimate the power of just creating a safe and calm environment for them, to build relationship with them before asking details. Often we want to jump to what we think is the obvious, situation and problem in the room, where sometimes it's just good to start with the very basics. Are you hungry? Would you like something to drink? Are you comfortable right now? All of those things show that you care about them as a person more than you're just interested in figuring out what the problem is and what's going on. Being consistent and reliable, showing up, being available. And I know sometimes this is out of your control, but if you can, pop in. If you know they're there, say hi. If you see a face you've seen before, let them know, man, I've been thinking about you. It's so good to see you again. How are you? These are all opportunities to just build trust and to show them that you're somebody who really cares. Empowering, not rescuing, giving them the tools, letting them know that you believe that they can, that they have options, that they have choices, that they can make those choices for themselves. So many victims have had their human rights taken away from them. Being somebody who gives that back is empowering to them. Using trauma informed communication with them. It's not just coming right out and saying, "Are you being trafficked?" Well, why did that happen? How did that happen? It's having the ability to again see them as a soul, and to use even the softness of your voice can help them feel safe and help them feel comforted. And then again, being alert to the red flags, but staying compassionate and understanding that grooming process is what can help with the compassion, understanding that this is somebody with a story. This is somebody with a name, with a history, that what you are seeing is the smallest dot on their timeline. And how do you take this moment to just offer love and grace and support right where you're at? Now we're going to talk about warning signs and red flags. Now, this is going to be more geared for those listening. So maybe not someone who is being actively trafficked, but this is something that can help you identify situations that may indicate that you yourself are at risk for exploitation or trafficking. And I know when I spoke with Dr. Nianpu, one of the questions was for many nurses that are looking for work and going online to find opportunities, whether that's traveling abroad or staying here in the States, there are certainly scams out there. There are certainly ways that traffickers are trying to present opportunities. And these are going to be the warning signs and red flags to help protect you against that. Now, first of all, we have to understand how traffickers may manipulate vulnerable professionals. So they're going to do this primarily through 5 different ways: deception, exploitation of vulnerability, coercion and control, emotional manipulation, and isolation. So I want to break these down real quick for you, starting with deception. So deception is going to look like misrepresenting job roles, the pay that goes along with them, or the working conditions. They may promise career advancements, education, or immigration benefits that actually do not exist. So this is all deceit. This is lies. They may also begin to target individuals experiencing financial stress. So again, we're going to look at vulnerabilities. They may have financial stress. career transitioning, or burnout. These are real vulnerabilities in healthcare professions. And so traffickers are aware of that, and they're going to be looking for that and targeting those vulnerable individuals. They may leverage the desire for international experience or mission driven work. And again, doing that through the deceit, doing that through promising something that is actually not real. They'll use coercion or control. So they may have threats that are related to immigration status, job loss, or harm to family, creating debt. So travel, housing, training fees to trap individuals. Now this is a piece that comes, let's say that you do actually accept a job or a career that is not what you thought it was, and now this is a situation where there's a trafficker on the other end. This is how they tend to keep a victim into that situation in that career, is through threats. They may threaten to take any documentation that you had. They will take that. They will threaten for you to lose your job or to harm your family back home. The debt bondage is very real with labor trafficking, where they will help you. They will offer to pay for your expenses, and then as soon as you arrive, you now have a debt you have to owe, and it is a debt that will never be able to be paid off. So you are trapped working that job because you have to pay off the debt. And then, like I said, taking away any documentation and restricting movement once you are there as well. They may build build false trust or relationships. And they may even make it seem like it's familial. We're like family. They'll try and create this bond in this family so that it makes you feel as if you can't leave because now you owe it to them, or you would be letting somebody down if you tried to get out. They may use guilt, obligation, or faith-based language to pressure compliance. They may gradually increase demands after the initial agreement. And then there's the isolation, so limiting communication with your family or outside support, placing individuals in unfamiliar environments without resources. Now, I am going to help you to be protected from this happening. We're going to go through what can you do to make sure this never happens to you? How do you see the signs? How do you make sure that you know that this is a legitimate option and protect yourself? Recruiting red flags. So when you're looking at the recruitment, you're going online, you're searching for a job, these are some of those red flags to look out for. So the first one is just a vague job description, an unclear role and responsibility. It may seem as if it's too good to be true. So there's a very high pay, very fast placement. There may be pressure to commit quickly or to travel urgently, and the recruiters who avoid any written contracts or provide incomplete documentation. These are all red flags to be looking out for. When it comes to contracts and financial concerns, they may request for upfront fees, placement, visa, travel processing. And again, those are all fees that are going to come back as debt bondage. Contracts written in a language that you cannot read. So there's a lack of information and ability to get the information that you need. They may withhold details about the salary, hours, or location, and the promises differ from the written agreements. So they're telling you one thing, but you're seeing something else in the written contracts. Travel and documentation issues. So your employer or recruiter insists on holding your passports or identification. This is a massive red flag in labor trafficking. So often, labor trafficked victims went through all of the necessary steps to come into the country or to go to another country legally. They have their passport, they have their IDs, they have everything that they need. And as soon as they arrive, the trafficker takes it from them. And they do this to hold them because they can easily tell them, you are now an illegal citizen. And because you don't have any of your documentation, you cannot prove that you came here legally. So this is a huge red flag. The travel arrangements may be controlled entirely by a third party with no transparency, and then being told not to speak to immigration officials or to misrepresent information. Integrity is key in all of the communication with a potential employer and job opportunity. Now, the workplace and living conditions. Upon arrival, there may be restricted movement or communication. There may be isolation from other professionals or support systems, unsafe or overcrowded housing tied to employment, and threats, intimidation, or retaliation for asking questions. When there is fear and a lack of information, or there are threats and there is an environment that makes you feel as if you cannot ask questions, that is a major red flag. So, learning safe practices before accepting your assignment is so vital to be able to protect yourself before you go. And that's what we're going to dive into. So here, knowing some of the red flags, here's what you can do to make sure that you're not going to fall prey. So one, verify the opportunity that you are reading through. So research the hospital clinic through official websites and third-party reviews. I had a young boy come to my house years ago, and he was canvassing the area trying to raise money for a trip that he was taking with another group of children. And the flyer that he gave me, it looked cheaply made, first of all, but the information seemed really vague. And the organization that he supposedly was with, I could not find them online. I quickly did a deep dive while he was standing there and said, I just want to look up, this program that you're with. And I found nothing online because that child was being labor trafficked. And so if you cannot find information online through official websites, through reviews, this could absolutely be a scam. Confirm the recruiter credentials and licensing through recognized boards or agencies, and speak directly with current or former employees if possible. And if you can't find that information, you should be able to ask your recruiter if there are anyone that they can reference you to that you can speak to as well. Review the contracts thoroughly, so ensure that all terms are in writing. Salary, hours, duties, housing, transportation, this should all be transparent and easy to find. You should have contracts reviewed by a legal professional or a trusted advisor, and never sign incomplete or blank documents. Protecting your personal documentation. And again, this is so important. I would recommend you do it, even if there are no red flags at all. I would highly recommend you doing this. So keep your original documents, your passport, license, ID in your possession. Do not give those to anyone. Share copies with a trusted contact at home. So if you're going abroad, if you're traveling, have copies of all of your identification with someone back at home, and then store digital backups securely. So many times, this right here is how traffickers are able to keep their victims, because that victim feels helpless because they do not have any of their personal identification. So making copies and keeping backups is going to help you if you're ever in a situation where you need to be able to relocate or prove that you are who you are and that you've taken the steps you've needed to take to be able to get to the position that you are in. Planning for safety, and this is just being wise. Register your travel with your country's embassy. Identify local emergency contacts and healthcare facilities before you even go. Establish a regular check-in schedule with your family or colleagues. And this is important because this allows family back at home to be mindful of what you're doing, to have a consistent and a known time where you're going to check in so that you can have that accountability back at home as well. Financial awareness, so avoid paying large upfront fees. Again, this could be used as debt bondage. Maintain access to your personal funds, so keep a separate fund from your employer's control. And then be cautious of arrangements that create financial dependency. All right, so how do you become better equipped to protect yourself and protect others? Personal safety strategies. This is just kind of an overview of what we've talked about, but trust your instincts. If something feels off, pause and reassess. Pray. I tell those of if you know the Lord and you have the Holy Spirit, that is your helper, that is your guide. And so often Holy Spirit is going to give you that pause that you need and that insight to know whether or not you may be in an unsafe situation. Maintain your control over communication devices and documents. Know exit options and emergency plans before departure. Stay connected with your trusted contacts regularly, build relationships with other healthcare workers on site, and engage with local embassy or consulate if needed. Recognize the signs of exploitation in colleagues or patients. So look around you as well. Even if you are safe, are the people around you safe? You know the signs now. Now you're equipped to be able to look out for those right in front of you. Know how to report concerns safely. So internal channels, hotlines, authorities, again, researching locally where you are going to see what supports are already in place is going to be very important for you. And then document any suspicious activity when safe to do so. Understand that victims may not self-identify due to fear and manipulation, like we talked about, so respond with compassion and not judgment. Prioritize safety and confidentiality when offering help. And then stay informed about global healthcare workforce risks. Participate in continued training on human trafficking awareness and share your knowledge with peers to strengthen to strengthen collective protection. There is a resource I want to share with you all really quick before we get into the Q&A. And this is Dr. You may want to share this, or maybe you have shared this, but it's Peter Morton's. He offers risk management, and so we can give maybe the link at another time. But Morton Executive Decisions, I believe is what it's called. Morton Executive Decisions. This is going to be a really great resource as you are traveling, and it can help you just look at any risks that you may be facing and help keep you protected. So we can provide the information for that as well. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this shared screen because we can do some questions. Let's see. Our Q&A now. Does that sound good?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, great. I was nervous that you weren't able to hear me while I was doing that. So hopefully you were able to hear as I was walking through the slides.
I just had to mute myself and be present. And oh my goodness, for those who are joining us, I said thank you for your attention, because I kept posting, just putting in the chat everything that was taken down from your presentation. Thank you so much, Dana. See, I call you Dana. Thank you so much, Mandy.
You're welcome. I get called Dinah all the time. So.
Oh my goodness, really? This is incredible. I learned things that I never knew. Like you said, the communication is not often clear, and that can be our downfall because we are defining the wrong terms and mismatching things and the red flags, and oh my goodness. So yes, guys, this is Q&A time. As I posted there, what are you taking from this presentation? What have you learned newly? Something new that you've come across through this conversation, through this presentation. And yeah, Q&A. Any questions? Post it in here, and we will have Mandy is ready. She is ready to entertain. Awesome. Wow. This is
I hope
amazing.
that was helpful, and we can maybe share the information for Peter Morton and what he offers, because he has really great resources and can help with that risk management before you go as well. So I think that will be a really good resource for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was looking over here because I've been in communication with him. I'm like, where's that email? Because indeed, is very much resourceful. He's military and he has seen it all and he knows all of the loopholes, the tricks, just making sure that
Yeah.
you're not going out there and blindsided. Awesome. I see Sis Francis. She said Happy Nurses Week, International Nurses Week. Yes, Sis Francis, the party is on and it's nonstop. Do you have any questions? And Sis Francis, she is our faith-based advisor. I can't get the words. I am so excited. So yesterday we were we were here talking all about what NIC does in our faith-based setting and what that means, what the foundation is, and what that being a faith-based
Mm,
provider, healthcare provider, what that calling is all about. And it was an amazing conversation, and that too
wow.
is our YouTube channel, and it was live, it was engaging. So thank you so much for returning. I know for most people they're going for lunch, but please do ask your questions. Let us know what you are taking from this presentation. It has been amazing. I
Oh,
learned so.
good.
And the other person who posted here, this is my mother. She's in Liberia. She said, "Thank you so much for
Wow.
this important event. Human trafficking is a real life threatening problem in the world. I am attending this event from Liberia. Thank you for sharing
Wow.
the information." She's always present. I think this lady, she has a GPS on me. Whenever I just saying that yesterday, I'm like, she's always on the alert and she shows up even when they don't
Wow.
good internet reception, she will find it.
That's amazing. Oh, and thank you for, I mean, everyone who's watching, thank you for what you all do. I really truly mean it from the bottom of my heart. I'm so grateful for those of you who are willing to just answer the own calling that the Lord's put on your heart to go and to serve those who, I mean, for so many, they don't see them. They feel unseen and they feel unloved. And I'm just so grateful to know that so many of you are willing to go to the least of these, the ones that the Lord just loves so dearly. So I feel really honored to be here with you and to present this.
Whew, you have hit the World Wide Web with this information. We truly, truly appreciate you, Mandy. Thank you so much. Um, just looking to see if there are any questions popping up in the chat. I don't see one. So, mm. So for those who are here and those who are watching this later on, when you do, just post your comments anyway, because I often go back to the videos and see, what comments and questions people may have. So we will definitely answer your question. And this is Benyu Michaela. He is in Cameroon, and he says, "Happy for this presentation. At least for me now, if I am traveling to any country, the first thing is to locate
Mm,
NIC to locate NIC members." And yeah, Michaela, this is the essence of Nurses in Charge connecting, because when you
mm,
connect with someone who is way out there and you guys have become a family, especially this is faith based, this is where we meet and we talk about Christ and we talk about our mission. We talk
mm,
we talk about identity in Christ. You are not confused about who you are going to connect with, and the advantage of knowing someone somewhere, as
mm,
said, being in silos, you know doesn't work for anyone. For your safety, it is very important to know somebody somewhere. and even question the organization that you're traveling to or with. Have you ever
Mm.
heard of this hospital? Have you ever heard of this organization? And then just take their brain. And NIC has that global community that is open to every one of us, so that we're not migrating any longer, and being lost in space, lost in in the vacuum of the green earth. So thank you so much, Michaela. Um, I appreciate that.
Oh,
There we are. Let's see. Let's go to first before we. Wow. Oh, Mandy, the chat is empty. I don't see any questions, apart from the ones that we've already addressed. So I said thank you so much for your time. It has been so much enlightening to just hear your presentation, or in a different light from when we
mm.
met at the conference a few weeks
Yeah.
ago. Was just you tailored it to our community, and no one can miss out on the information you share. You know, searching Google and trying to find out the right information is nowhere compared to what you share with us today. Indeed,
Wow. Thank you.
this is the the most important thing here is that we are getting information from a reliable source. And something I did not share about you earlier is that you have this is your passion because you've lived it, right?
Mm.
You've lived this entire um, dangerous life event. So to you, this is your calling to make sure that it never happens again to someone else. And I love the fact
Mm.
you refer to the trafficked victims as souls, because in essence that is who we are. We are souls walking on
Yes.
earth, right? And sometimes we don't
Yes.
capture that. We just think, oh, I'm just a person. No, you are a soul, and that your soul is what we're trying to, so that the lost souls, right, we can
Yes.
uh, save the lost the lost souls. So
Yes. Yes. Well, I am so thankful and grateful for this opportunity, and I appreciate you just see, I'm so glad you can see the passion. I've never been trafficked, but I have been in abusive relationship, a marriage before. And, just to know how the Lord saw me and rescued me from the pit that I was in, and to know that he is able to do that. And the enemy is real, and he is prowling like a lion, but man, the Lord is victorious over all, and he invites us into this work of seeking and saving the lost. And he calls himself the good shepherd who goes after the one. And I'm so honored any chance that we're invited into that opportunity to go after and to share just his goodness with those who don't know, who don't know that there's hope. So I am so grateful to just have had this opportunity, and I want to be a support for the long haul. So if you get any questions, if anybody has anything that I can do to help as they're preparing, or just kind of praying through different scenarios, reach out anytime. I'm happy to be here.
thank you so much for giving us that opportunity. She says she's here for the long haul. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Lord. Mandy, when I prayed for helpers, I said, Lord, send me helpers. I can run nurses in charge alone. This is a global assignment that you have given me. I cannot do
Yeah.
it all alone. Just like
Yeah.
Solomon prayed. Solomon said, Lord, these are your people. I don't know how to lead them. So you are one of those. You are one of those answers to my prayer, and I say thank you so much. Thank you, and may God bless you and continue to guide your steps, and make sure that you are covered, because you have so much in you that he wants to make sure to use in this world, and reach his people, saving those lost souls, and those souls
Mm.
that have been manipulated, and I will use an African term, may thunder fire them.
Mm.
Because, traffickers out there just preying on vulnerable souls out there. So may thunder fire them in Jesus' name. So
Yes. Yes.
you have to speak it as it is, because that's evil. That's evil
Yeah.
when people just set out to claim another person's life and govern it and just take it and do them wrong, and it's
Yeah.
becoming so rampant. So thank you so much for throwing light on this topic. And no one can go away without knowing that you hit the spot, and it is recorded. It's in our YouTube channel forever. The internet does not forget things, so it will be there for people who we don't even know. You will save somebody's life by
Wow.
this information that you have shared. And may God bless what you're doing and continue to bless you and your family. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, look out for more events coming throughout this celebration phase that we have until May 16th. So Monday we have financial awareness, uh, uh, wealth building and financial awareness for nurses and midwives, healthcare
Mm.
providers in general. So look out for that. No, I got that mismatch. Symposium is on Monday, our research presentation, and we have 12 presenters. So don't miss out. It's going to be amazing. And then on Tuesdays, when we're having the financial awareness, so it's down packed. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Just keep your eyes open. Like, subscribe, and share, because this way you will get the alerts. You will get the reminders through your social media connections with Nurses in Charge. Indeed. So without further ado, we want to just say thank you to our guests and Godspeed. We will see you again by the grace of God. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh dear, this was amazing. Thank you so much.